Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Fix My Deck. Today we're going to be talking about a Sliver Gravemother deck. Sliver Gravemother is of course a legendary creature Sliver, costs 5 mana, like all the legendary Slivers. And she has the legend rule, doesn't apply to Slivers you control. She has each Sliver creature card in your graveyard has Encore X, and then she has Encore 5. And if you don't know, Encore says pay mana, exile this card from your graveyard, and then for each opponent, create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They gain haste, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. And the player who submitted this form, they basically want to do some graveyard recursion, and they want to abuse the end step delayed trigger using cards like Obeka, who can end the turn. If you don't know, the way this works is at the end of turn, the commander's trigger will go on the stack, and then you tap and use Obeka, and it exiles that delayed sacrifice trigger off of the stack, and then you get to keep those tokens from Encore. Now, this player, they're basically saying that the deck's too slow, it runs out of cards. Said the earliest one they can think of is 7, and that's if they get lucky with draws. They're having color fixing issues, they're having card draw issues, and they said they plan virtual tabletop and won very few games. And since they're playing virtually, they're not financially limited, but they want to avoid things like the dual lands because that feels cheap. And they apologize for bringing a boring Sliver deck, but I think Slivers are great, in part because they're aggro, and I think people should play aggro more in EDH. In fact, this deck, I would call it seems like the goal is to kind of make it aggro-combo. I messed up. This is actually the second time I recorded this video. The first time I wasn't recording sound, so I already have my completed deck list, and mostly what I did is I removed almost all of the non-Sliver creatures. So I removed Beast Whisperer, I removed Roaming Throne, and then I added in quite a few more Slivers. I think I have 7 additional Slivers in this deck, because with Slivers, the more of them you have, the better. You can never have enough Slivers, so I wanted to get that Sliver count high, and then I was trying to find Slivers that could kind of fill in the gaps for some of the cards I removed. And also some ones like Hatchery Sliver that have a really strong effect. And then I removed the colorless lands from the mana base, because with something like Sliver Gravemother, you want everything to tap for a mana to be able to be spent on her. So I got rid of the Kessig Wolf Run and the basic cycling land, and I got rid of one of each basic, and I added in the Triomes. A lot of people don't like the Triomes because they enter tapped, but with casual EDH, often our mana curves aren't such a concern. I mean, often we can play around the fact they enter tapped, especially if it's like turn 1 off a fetch land, since we often, don't have that many turn 1 plays anyways. I did reduce the land count slightly, but I added in Cathartic Reunion and Faceless Looting, which are going to help us get our Slivers into the graveyard. And since they're such low mana and they get us through so many cards, they kind of act as a substitute for lands. And I also added in 3 visits, so we have another 2 mana ramp spell. And I also added in Buried Alive, so we can tutor up some of those Slivers into our graveyard. Also Pyre of Heroes and Birthing Pod. I think this player had some of this stuff like Birthing Pod and Pyre of Heroes in the sideboard, and these are definitely worth running because we want ways to put the Slivers into the graveyard so we can get them back with the Gravemother. And this will help us tutor up for all the best Slivers. And then speaking of the best Slivers, Mana Weft Sliver and the other Sliver that make Slivers tap for mana are basically the best ones. So I also added in Cryptolith Rite, because that will also make our Slivers tap for mana and allow us to have some really explosive turns. Anyways, that's kind of the bulk of my changes. I had to make some difficult cuts around the artifacts and enchantments in order to fit some of the Slivers in, and that's just because you got to start, I think, by focusing really hard on the strategy, and we got to start by keeping the Sliver count high, and then if we get the deck working, we can consider putting some of those enchantments like Mirror Match and stuff back into the deck. But until then, until we get the deck working, we want to keep the Sliver count high. Also, another card I added was Clever Concealment, because this is also a card we can use to keep our tokens around off Sliver Gravemother, because if you phase them out, won't exist at end of turn and can't be sacrificed. So let's go ahead and play test this. So this is decent starting hand. We got Arcane Signet and the World Tree. So World Tree, draw, Temple Garden, Arcane Signet, and then we'll use Arcane Signet to cast Faithless Looting. We'll draw 2 cards, and we'll discard Magma Sliver and Capricious Sliver, and we'll draw. We'll do Cathartic Reunion, which requires us to discard. We'll discard Flooded Strand and the first Sliver, and we'll draw 3. And then we'll play Cavernous Souls for our turn. We'll play Heart Sliver. We'll draw Breeding Pool. We'll play Sliver Gravemother. We'll draw Steam Vents. Let's see what I have in here. We'll pay 4 to get... Actually, we won't pay Steam Vents yet, because we'll play 4 to get this, and then we'll swing with all 3 of these and exile the top 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Steam Vents will play Mana Weft Sliver. So all this stuff goes to exile. We got Mana Weft Sliver into play, which is best Sliver in the game. We'll draw a card. This is just about good game, because we had I accidentally put first Sliver into the exile pile. So we're going to get the first Sliver. We're going to get 3 copies of that. That really only costs us 2 mana, since the 3 Slivers tap for 3 mana. We're going to tap 3, maybe also the Commander, to play Taunting Sliver, and that's going to be 3 Cascades. So is that Sliver Cascades? No, it's just regular Cascades. So we do Growing Rights, which will look at top 4. We'll put Synapse Sliver in our hand. And then next Cascade will be Firewake Sliver. And next Cascade will be Lava Belly Sliver. So this is a pretty busted board state. Let's try another game. Okay, let's see. Well, this says Mana Weft Sliver, so I'm definitely keeping it. And 2 lands, so Ragavan Triumph, Command Tower, Mana Weft Sliver, draw Harmonic Sliver. We'll use the Misty Rainforest, and we'll get a Triumph. And see, this is what I was talking about with the Triumphs. It enters tap, but it doesn't matter, because we only wanted to spend 3 mana that turn. We'll draw. We'll play this island. We have 6 mana. Depending on the scenario, if there are artifacts and enchantments I wanted to hit at this point, I would play these 2 Slivers. Actually, yeah, let's do that, because there's probably Soul Rings and stuff like that we want to hit with Harmonic Sliver. So at this point, we've hit 3 artifacts or enchantments by turn 4, which is going to be pretty devastating for people. We'll draw 8 mana. Let's play this Opaline Sliver and then Sliver Gravemother. And then if they try to remove her, we potentially get a card off of it. We'll draw. We'll play this Thorncaster Sliver. We can probably attack, and we have enough Slivers that we can probably kill some of the creatures people have been playing. So right now, this is like a pretty oppressive board state. We'll go the next turn. We'll draw. We'll play Cathartic Reunion. This is exactly what I wanted to see. So we play Cathartic Reunion, and we'll put these 2 Slivers there. We'll discard them to it, and then we'll return Magnetic Sliver. So we get 3 copies. This thing triggers 3 times. And everything is getting +9/+9. We'll probably also return this one to play. Oh, I should have played Obeka earlier to save the Magnetic Sliver. But that's okay. At this point, +9 to all these Slivers. So that might just be good game. So this is Gemini Sliver. And it's got a lot of lands, but actually we can cycle the Triumphs if we have to. So Savai Triome, tapped, draw. Command Tower, Gemhide Sliver, draw. Island, Essence Sliver, draw. Sacred Foundry, Kindred Discovery, draw. Play Sliver Gravemother, leaving 1 mana open, draw. Play a Triome. Next turn, draw. So yeah, now we play Pyre of Heroes, and then we probably sacrifice the Essence Sliver to go get the first Sliver, and then we'd have 3 mana left, so we could cast... Well, that would draw us a card off Kindred Discovery. And then we could cast Mana Left Sliver and Cascade. That's really... Oh, and that also draws us, and then we'd... That would also be a really strong start. So let's try this again. This start is less strong, but we do have Harmonic Sliver, which is a good card to see early. Let's give it a shot. So, oh, that got a little bit better. Draw. Mountain. Oh, I messed up. I should have played Path of Ancestry on the opening turn. We'll draw. We'll play Harmonic Sliver and we'll scry 1. And I don't think we need another 3-drop, so we'll send that to the bottom. I did not play land for this turn, so I play Overgrown Tomb. Draw. We'll Wooded Foothills into something, and we'll Lava Belly Sliver and Venom Sliver. And that's going to let us blow up 2 artifacts or enchantments, which is pretty devastating for a lot of people in EDH. And we'll get probably Breeding Pool. Oh, and I got to scry 1 off casting 1 of those. So, Hatchery Sliver. I did want to try that. Let's move that to the bottom. So we'll draw for turn. Cavern of Souls. We'll play the Commander. We'll scry 1. That's good to have on top. So we get to blow up another permanent. Harmonic Sliver is pretty oppressive. So next turn we'll draw. We'll play Necrotic Sliver. Or maybe Crystalline Sliver. And oh, we get scry off that. Obeka, cool. We can leave Obeka on top. And we can pay 3 to blow up something. Like someone's commander or something, which would be strong. And attack, and then we'll draw. And then we'll... 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll play Obeka and Crystalline Sliver. And off Crystalline Sliver, we... Oh, will I be able to cast Obeka? Red, blue... Oh, yeah. Okay, so we can do both those. So we scry 1. Morophon. I think I don't want that right now because I want to find card draw. So next turn we'll draw. We'll get the Necrotic Sliver back. We'll do some... Blow up some stuff. And do some damage. And then we'll attack and end the turn. And we get to keep the Necrotic Slivers. We'll draw. Oh, I forgot to scry off that. That seems like a pretty good opening hand. I didn't get as much card draw as I wanted, but we were blowing up people's stuff with Harmonic Sliver. If they had Planeswalkers, Lava Belly Sliver was blowing things up. Necrotic Sliver was blowing things up. We're getting card advantage from, you know, getting things back. So let's do one more game. I don't know. Ooh, this will make us the Monarch. Okay. Let's draw. We'll do this. We'll get a Triumph. We'll draw. Sacred Foundry, Hatchery Sliver. We'll draw. Overgrown Tomb tapped into a Heart Sliver. We'll draw. Island. Regal Sliver. We become the Monarch. We draw at end of turn, and then we'll draw on our next turn. Secluded Courtyard. We'll play the Sliver Hive Lord. We'll draw at end of turn from the Monarch. And then we'll draw for our next turn. Stomping Ground. Great Henge now costs 4 mana. But if we play this, let's do the Arcane Signet finally. 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3. This Sliver, and then now Great Henge only costs 3 mana. Probably could have played that differently. I'll draw end of turn, and then I'll draw at the next turn. At this point, things should be pretty strong. So we'll play the Gravemother and replicate her, gaining life, drawing a card. Play Arid Mesa. We can attack. We'll draw end of turn. We'll draw for our next turn. I felt good. Okay, well that's all I have for tonight. And if you made it this far, thanks for watching. And if you made this deck, I hope it was useful to you. And I hope that you can take some of my suggestions and do things like increase the sliver count and figure out a way to make this deck a little faster and a little more reliable. Like, comment, and subscribe.